Feel good is not really the best metric to measure mental health or personal well-being. That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, I'm Kirby. I am a specialist in attachment and trauma, and I shoot these videos every day to help people get through their darkest times and move towards a life of happiness, joy, and well-being. So, great. I just gave you my canned intro. And in that, I talked about moving towards happiness and well-being, which we're going to classify as feel-good emotions. So how does that fit in with this idea that feel-good is not really the great metric for mental health, emotional stability, and general well-being? What are we talking about here? What I'm talking about is that when I look on the internet and kind of in the field of mental health in general, and I live in a community that is very, very focused on this, huge numbers of organizations, facilities, practitioners, everything else, all focused on mental health and well-being. It's literally like a mecca on earth for people to come here when they're not feeling good. So I see it all the time. And what I see is people focusing on, I just want to feel better. I don't feel good now. I've got this pain or misery or sadness or anxiety. I have all that living inside me and I want to be better. I want to get to a place where I don't have these feelings inside me. Okay, that seems to be the place where a lot of people start. And what they're aiming for and what they're grasping at is that I want to feel better. I want to feel good. Yes, we all want to feel good. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying that if that is your primary goal and the only metric by which you're measuring your progress, you're going to have a rough time. And you'll probably find yourself stuck in repeating loops. And the way the loop looks is that like, oh, I do this thing, ayahuasca or Melicat or, crystal healing or whatever, or even talk therapy, DBT, EMDR. I do this thing and there's a lot of stuff happens, right? A lot of stimulus, a lot of emotional movement, whatever. And we kind of be like, wow, I just had this huge thing. And we're calling a peak experience. And they go up into this kind of peak emotional state where it feels amazing. Like maybe they've got a sense of bliss or connection with the universe or whatever. And then they come back down and, they might spend a time, especially if they practice at it, they'll spend some time kind of just like marinating in this blissful feeling of connectedness and awesome. And I'm so happy. And this is the way we want to be, and et cetera, et cetera. And what they try to do is they try to extend that bliss state longer and longer and longer. But almost inevitably, not all cases, but we'll say high 80s, low 90s. In most cases, that bliss state runs out. It's kind of like it runs out of steam, runs out of gas, because even the bliss state has a cost on our nervous system. And also, maybe more importantly, is that the bliss state is usually some kind of avoidant tactic or spiritual bypassing. And what they've done is that they've seeked out the peak experience, not actually dealing with the pain or fear that lives inside them. And then they kind of stay gripping onto this bliss state as it's petering out. And then they come back to their baseline, which might even be a couple notches higher because they've been in the bliss state for so long. Great, cool. But they come to their baseline and then they face a stressor. They get to a point where someone is rejecting them, or a relationship is ending, or a death of a family member, or loss of a job, or whatever, right? They face some kind of stress that has chronically plagued them in their life, and then that stress hits them, and now they're definitely not in the bliss state anymore. Now they're in this place where they're just like, and their nervous system is reacting, and they've got fear, they've got anxiety, they have anger, resentment, hopelessness, all the traits of like a negative emotional state, right? They call these negative valence emotions. So they go through all this, and then tragically, what I see oftentimes in this kind of community is that when that happens and they fall into the negative emotional state, there's this sense of shame, like, oh, I'm not doing it well enough, right? I'm not, whatever the dogma or belief system or whatever, like, I'm not, what's an example? Like, oh, I just need to meditate more, or I have been meditating with or focusing on this one particular frequency from this one crystal. And I really needed is I really need to be focusing on this other one. Or instead of this kind of breath work, I need to try that kind of breath work. There's this sense of shame. That's the thing that's kind of the theme here, is that there is this shame and self-attacking doubt that shows up because they recognize that they're in a negative emotional state and they feel like they failed somehow. And they will become all this negativity towards self because they have been unable to maintain the bliss state. And the only reason they thought that maintaining the bliss state was even possible is because they're in this community where practitioners and facilitators and other members keep telling them this fallacy that you can stay in a bliss state forever. So they're kind of creating this like unrealistic expectation. And it's truly a false narrative. Yes, it is true. There are some extremely enlightened souls out there that are probably capable of maintaining a bliss state for long, long periods of time. And, what can we say about that? I've met some people like that and highly regarded in their community. And then we talk and we ask a couple of questions, and then it just becomes clear. Like even in one conversation, it becomes clear this person has massive unresolved trauma that is in their past, and they are in a constant state of pursuing the spiritual high as a way of escaping that trauma and the pain connected to it. Fear really is more accurate. So like I see that kind of dynamic play out, and I'm like, well, this person's been a spiritual teacher and a meditator or whatever for a long period of time, and it's cool that these followers adore and everything else, but I'm like, there's an aspect to this that's dishonest. There's an aspect to this that is using spiritual highs as a numbing agent, as an addiction, a distraction, to get away from this pain of or fear of their life and try to keep this ball rolling. But that takes energy. And I guess if you can achieve that, then great. And if that brings you to a place of happiness and positive impact on your community and the people around you, then who am I or anyone else to bring doubt to that? So it's just like, get on with your bad self, like go for it. But that's not what I see. What I see is these people that have been sold this narrative that you can stay in a good place all the time if you just ... right? Follow this, do that, whatever. And this is where it kind of begins to create kind of a toxic dynamic. Because if I believe that doing the practice or whatever every single day, 6 hours a day, 10 hours a day, whatever, if I abstain from meat or vegetables or physical contact or, chlorine in the water, whatever, if I abstain from all these things, if I suffer, if I sacrifice, then I'll have the goodness. And once we frame it like that, we can see we've got this like thousands of years of history in almost every major religious system that has this story, this narrative playing out. If you just sacrifice enough, I'll bring the presence. I'll bring the goodness. And you see, this is a reflection of the classical conditioning model that we've all endured. And the classical conditioning being those moments when we are children and we're basically wild animals, trying to figure out what the hell is going on in this life and what is this thing that I am, and this body and my experience and everything else. trying to figure all that out. And then we've got these big, powerful creatures that we're like literally physiologically wired to prioritize and connect with, mom and dad. And then they begin a process of giving love, but then taking it away if you don't perform the way we want you to. Right? There's a negative consequence. And then there's this message that goes into the classical conditioning model that is like, if you just ... you will get the love and affection that you want. You'll get the praise. You'll get the cuddles. You'll get the lifting you up in front of the community and bragging about how amazing you are. Right? If you just ... you're going to get all the good stuff. And so this is a way that we train young children into socializing into whatever our particular cultural belief system is. You know, it might be hunting fish on one island, and it might be like, you know, doing math on some city-state. It doesn't really matter. The point is that the parents are in a particular culture that has a set of beliefs about good and bad and right and wrong. And then those parents feel a very strong compulsion to train and manipulate that child's brain into coming into alignment with our value system. Sure, right? But it has consequences. Like we need to do that, but yet there's also consequences. So it's not like let children run free. I mean, maybe. Again, that has to do with your value system. But it is recognize that there's consequences at play. And what happens in those consequences is now that nervous system is going to be primed, optimized, and calibrated around the idea that if I just ... I will get the cookie. I will get the prize. I will get the happy reward. So we do this thing in mental health and, I don't know, conscious communities, whatever we're going to call that, alternate modes of personal development and healing. And many people sell this pitch, which is if you just ... you're going to get all the prizes. And if you look at their marketing and the way they talk and the things that they bring to the, you know, the retreats and the classes and everything else, you see this pattern over and over again. Okay, what does this have to do with the initial topic? The initial topic is happiness, well-being, feel good is not a measure of progress, is not a really good metric for measuring my personal well-being or my mental health. Because we can turn this around and say, if that is your metric, feel good, for mental health and well-being, then like, oh, here, look, we've got these amazing street drugs or designer pharmaceuticals, whatever, that we can just come over here and eat the tablet, take the injection, eye drops in the eyes, whatever, and you're going to feel amazing. Cocaine, heroin, MDMA, et cetera, right? We have ways of chemically bludgeoning your brain into a state of happy bliss. We can do that. Okay, but then we got to ask the question, for how long? Because if we do it chemically, there's going to be a consequence, right? There's going to be a downside. There's going to be a point when your body doesn't even have enough dopamine or serotonin left because it's all been used up from the last ride. And now I'm going to be in a state of misery again. So then what do we do? Say, okay, if feel good is my metric, sure, I take the chemicals, I feel great, I'm healed. I literally worked with people that sit right here and tell me that. They say, oh yeah, if I just realized that I need to take more of whatever their substance was, and when I do, I'm good, I'm healed. I forgot how healing that plant medicine is, and when I take it, I feel better. Okay, but are you in the same dynamic? Are you in the same toxic relationship? Are you activating at the same kind of stressors? Are you attracted to and attracting the same kind of people, the same kind of emotional unavailability? Are you still spinning in a pit of shame, spirally misery the moment that someone looks at you funny or rejects you or says something critical about your person or your work or whatever? If any of those are true, then what's going on? How healing can it be if we step back into the same space and we have the same problems? Especially if those problems are so volatile or intense that it destabilizes other aspects of our life, which was me for years and years and decades. And I tell that story in other videos. So the way I see it, feel good is a byproduct of the other stuff. Feeling good over a long period of time without chemical intervention or dogmatic intervention or anything, any kind of interventions from the external world, especially romantic relationships, the romantic validating energy. If I can feel good in a place where I've not taken any chemicals, I've not engaged with any kind of like spiritual ritualism, and I have not engaged in any kind of romantic validation engine, and I can still feel awesome about myself and my life, then I'm winning. So that's kind of a good metric. But a little bit of a distraction, because what I think is the best metric is put myself in the same situation that was destabilizing for me in the past. Is it destabilizing now? Yes, I've got more work to do. Yes, then whatever those things I've done that led up to this point have been ineffectual. Maybe just inefficient, but they have not actually demonstrated positive movement or positive change. And so if we come back to the person that's like arguing for the like prolonged states of bliss, yeah, sometimes we do. Some people, not all. If I just do a gut check on that about the people that I've met in that kind of situation, I'd say probably less than 30% have engaged in such a way that they're able to maintain a bliss state for a long period of time so that their future stressors are less intense, more balanced, more calm, more peaceful, and they have more joy in their life kind of overall. It happens. And so if you think you're one of those, go for it. That's kind of the crux of the hypothesis here, is that when we use feel good as the metric by which I'm determining if I'm doing better or if I'm healed or if that modality has helped me, and I measure that all against like, oh, do I feel better today? We almost always feel better the day after a peak experience, usually a few days. But it's like, go further down. Like waking up in the morning just being like, oh, I feel good today. Sweet. That's an awesome thing. And I wish it upon everyone. But if I just did a mushroom trip or an ayahuasca ceremony or screaming under a waterfall or some kind of intense like somatic releasing kind of thing or sound healing, like if I just did that and the next day I'm just like, yeah, I feel good. Fantastic. You just got a day of feeling good. You had a peak experience and a day of feeling good. That's wonderful. Do not mean to discredit any of that. But now let's go 10 days in the future or 30 days in the future and get you to the point where you're wrapped up in a person that you have historically had drama with. Is there still drama there? Are you more at peace? Is your nervous system more regulated? Do you have more patience for their iniquities? Right? If yes, great. Then whatever you've done up to that point has been productive and useful. But if you're like, oh, I'm still in the same relationship with the same toxic guy and it's not going anywhere, and I know it's not going anywhere, and it's like, why can't he just blah 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 blah? Oh, if I would just ... then he would be there for me and show up and love me the way I want to be loved and that kind of stuff. Like if we hear someone saying that, having that kind of narrative or dialogue or thoughts, then we need to be more critical about whatever healing modalities they've engaged in up to that point. Because it's just like, sure, you did all the stuff, all the things, all the plant medicines and rituals and whatever else, but you're still here in the same place that is holding you down, toxifying your life, creating stress and unhappiness. So what's going on? I hope that makes sense. Because I'm thinking about, a lot of this came up from my own personal journey. And in my own personal journey, I had to come to this realization, and nobody helped me get there, to realize that it was just like all these various things I was doing would give me one peak experience after the next. But when I got back to that room with that person and she was behaving in a particular way, my nervous system would just set on fire. And then sometimes it was high, euphoric highs, and sometimes it was tragic depressive lows. But my nervous system would react with great deal of intensity and volatility anytime that person was around and behaving in a certain way and saying the right kinds of words and whatever else. And I was just like, I've been at this for years, like 3 years at one point. I think it was 3 years. Like, I've been at this for 3 bloody years, and I've done everything I can think of and every ritual I can engage with that to help me get to a point where my nervous system is calm, and yet here I am with this person and it still just goes off the charts. And I'm like, none of this stuff is working. And then a truly tragic thought happens. And the truly tragic thought is that it's like, there must be something wrong with me. I must be really broken, or I must be super traumatized, or maybe, I've got ADHD or bipolar or blah, 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 right? We start digging for like labels to attach to ourselves so that we can like kind of bring some kind of resolution to this idea that, this dynamic is not working. But it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. The simple truth of the matter is those healing modalities, those peak experiences, are primarily just distractions. They're numbing agents that give us a short-term high to convince us that we're making progress. I need to believe that I'm actually doing something. And now that I'm on the other side and I help others, I see this all the time. I'll give a client a recommendation of an exercise to do in their free time, and they'll just be like, I don't see why. I refuse. I don't want to do that. Why not? It's like, because it just feels like a waste of time. I want to be doing something. I want to be healing my trauma. Well, this is how. And they're like, no, that's just sitting with my emotions. What's the point? What's the point of sitting with my emotions? If they're just negative, I'm just going to be sitting around with my negative emotions all the time. No, I refuse. Okay. Then good luck. Right? There's this idea that I need to be doing, I need to be achieving, I need to be going, I need to be investing and taking action. I need to be filling up and answering the, if you just ... If you just try harder, if you just work more, if you just try more modalities, if you just find a new waterfall to scream under, or a different plant medicine to engage in, or a different shaman, or blah, 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 right? The list goes on and on and on. Literally, the list of ways that we can numb ourselves out and distract from where we need to focus, that list seems to be infinite. So don't do that. Don't focus on feeling better. Focus on, if I'm in the same situation, am I stronger? Am I more resilient? Am I capable of more? Do I have better boundaries? Am I able to, is my brain calm enough that I can actually communicate legibly, right? Is my brain foggy, or is it not foggy? It's like, oh, in the past it's always been foggy, but this time I've got clarity. My brain is still functioning. It's like, yes. yes, yes. If you can do that, you're winning. And so what happens in all of this is that when we focus on the crucible, the moment that I put myself in the fire to burn off the impurities, to see how to test myself, to see how much stress can I endure after all this work I've done. If I put myself in the crucible and then I pass, maybe it's a small crucible at first, maybe it's a small test, maybe it's a small stressor, but we progressively get bigger and bigger over time. We literally, that's the method in the two mind method that I developed and teach. This is a key part of it, is that you go into it intentionally. And then once you pass that test, you're not like, hey, I'm done. You're like, no, hell yeah, passed round one. Now I turn up the volume. I make it more difficult. I make it more stressful. I make the feelings of rejection more intense. I instead of just my girlfriend leaving me, I'm like, as I'm working the exercise and I'm visualizing it, I'm making her leave me for another person. And then I make her leave me for another person who's younger and hotter than I am. And then I make her leave and it's just, I keep turning up the intensity of the challenge. And then I watch how my physiology reacts to it. And then I create the challenge. My physiology reacts. Now I come back here into myself and I try to understand and process and soothe the physiological reaction I'm having to that stressor. And in doing so, every time I get stronger, I get more capable, I get more balanced, I get more secure, I get more level-headed. Every measurable aspect of mental health and well-being improves. And then I do that. And then after a period of time, the side effect, the thing I notice in my life is that I feel better. Feel good is the byproduct of the real work. And that feel good isn't a short-term high. That feel good isn't just this like, woo, I'm in this like peak euphoric experience. No, it's not that. I'm not in a bliss state that I'm trying to maintain, fuel the fire and keep my bliss state going forever and ever. No, it's this gentle feel good, this like pervasive, confident capacity and security and groundedness that just is now a part of my life. It's an aspect of just living. And it's like, wow, that feels nice. And I don't feel like I'm working at it. I just feel like I got this. And I'm capable. And I'm not scared anymore. Feel good. When we use feel good as the primary metric, it drives us to addiction, distraction, numbing, spiritual bypassing, and a whole bunch of other stuff. When we use capacity and improved stress response as the metric for my well-being or my progress, like it becomes a very systematic step-by-step approach where we have clear feedback. It face the challenge, get better, face the challenge, get better, face the challenge, get better. And then some days we just take a rest from that. And then we notice, oh, wow, I feel pretty good right now. Like, oh, okay, sweet. It's like I'm over here doing real work, real focus, real growth. It's a rough, difficult ride. And then as soon as I take a break, my life feels better. My relationships are better. Stressors are down, anxiety's down, depression's down. Like all the measurable metrics of negative mental health are decreased. And this is super consistent. I believe in it 1000%. So I hope I've convinced you. All right. That's today's talk. I hope you found it useful. I know there's people out there that this will ruffle feathers, and others are just going like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And I hope this finds its way onto the screens of the best thing ever people. Again, I'm Kirby. I'm a specialist in trauma and attachment theory. And I do this all the time. I do it professionally, one-on-one, group counseling, save marriages, executive mindset stuff, because it's all connected. I teach in live classes here in my town every week. I'm hoping to get on the international lecture circuit soon. So if you know anybody that's looking for a speaker, hit me up. And if you've got problems in your life and you're struggling to understand these things, leave a comment, send me a DM, get in touch. I love talking about this stuff. I love helping people work through it. So wish you the best. I believe in you. Peace.